3. Sinister close encounters with the cursed, spine-chilling tales revealed from the haunted abyss. The neighborhood of Maplewood had once thrived on serenity, but lately it felt cloaked in a dreadful haze. The air crackled with unnerving energy, making hearts race just a little faster. Sarah, a weary single mother, could sense a sinister change as she made her way home after a grueling shift at the diner. Exhausted, she rubbed her eyes, determined to keep her worries hidden from her two children, Emma and Jake, who were blissfully asleep. Yet, an unmistakable shiver raced down her spine as she glanced out the window. Across the street, Mr. Hemsworth sat on his porch, his visage like shadows bleeding into night. His eyes glinted with a malevolence that made the hairs on her arms stand on end. As if sensing her unease, he smiled, yet the aura felt wrong, as if the very air around him held sinister intentions. She shook off the chill, deciding it was just fatigue. But a nagging instinct whispered that he was not an innocent neighbor, he was a lurking predator. Days passed, yet every evening it became harder to silence her growing paranoia. She'd hear scratching at the windows, could swear she spotted quick movements in the corners of her sight. The unsettling occurrences escalated when her children's prized possessions suddenly vanished: Emma's cherished locket, Jake's favorite baseball glove, leaving a pit of dread in her stomach. Her heart raced. Could it be Hemsworth? Or was the neighborhood itself haunting her? Before she spiraled deeper into fear, she tried to reach out for help, but the authorities dismissed her concerns as mere neighborhood gossip. Panic gripped her, spreading like poison through her veins. Each creak of the floorboards at night sent her pulse racing as shadows danced behind her. The familiar silence of Maplewood morphed into an oppressive canvas painted with fears of the unknown. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Still, dread tightened its grip as whispers of missing children clawed their way back to the surface, causing a panic among the community. Sarah felt suffocated, trapped in a web spun by fear. When she began investigating Hemsworth's past, she unearthed chilling stories that had turned her blood cold, a legacy that rippled through generations of betrayals and curses threatening the innocent. These weren't just stories, they were warnings etched in the walls of her neighborhood, warnings she wished she had heeded before it was too late. Then one fateful night, a gathering of shadowy figures materialized outside Hemsworth's porch, their low, guttural conversations oozing dread. Sarah's breath quickened as she strained to hear fragments about sacrifices and dark offerings. The grip of terror wrapped around her heart, yet curiosity compelled her toward the darkness. Just then, laughter erupted from her backyard, pulling her heart in conflicting directions. Clenching the doorknob, she prepared for confrontation, every nerve on fire. What awaited her as she stepped beyond the threshold? Was the true monster already in her home, or was it lurking just out of sight, ready to snatch away Emma and Jake? The stakes had never been higher. Sarah could feel the tightening of fate, the breath of dread, as the shadows beckoned her closer. The door creaked open, sending a sharp sound slicing through the stillness of the night. Sarah hesitated for a brief second, heart pounding, her eyes scanning the dark yard. The laughter that pierced the silence sent icy tendrils of fear crawling up her spine again. Nothing felt right. The air seemed thicker, bitter with an unknown stench, like rotten leaves and dark secrets. Emma? Jake? She called out, her voice shaky. The response was eerily absent, swallowed by the thick shadows encroaching on her yard. Each step felt heavy as she strained to see through the fog of darkness. The flickering light from the porch bulb cast flickering shadows, enhancing her sense of dread. Then she saw it, a figure darting between the trees. Heart racing faster, she squinted, trying to make out more details. It blended perfectly with the darkness. A kid? No, it was too tall, too lean. Her stomach twisted. Was that Hemsworth? The very thought sent panic surging through her veins. but then she saw them. Emma and Jake, giggling in delight, their backs turned to her. Relief washed over her, but it was quickly followed by confusion. What were they doing outside at this hour? Anxiety clawed at her as she moved closer. Come here. You shouldn't be out here. As she rushed forward, the shadows seemed to stretch and writhe, pulling back like smoke. Suddenly, the children turned. Their faces were blank, eerily serene, and they didn't seem to recognize her. The laughter faltered, morphing into something sinister, echoing in a way she had never heard before. Mommy. Emma's voice came out, but it was hollow, empty. Jake's eyes darted around, gazing past her, as if he was staring at something she couldn't see. We're playing, he said, but it felt wrong, like a puppet reciting lines. Playing? In the dark? Panic edged into Sarah's voice. She stepped forward, ready to grab her children, but the moment she moved closer, something cold brushed against her neck. A slight breeze? No, it felt like a finger, ghostly and chilling. She spun around, but there was nothing there. Just the unsettling quiet of the night. No trace of Hemsworth. Let us go inside, now. She urged, feeling desperation clawing at her thoughts. Emma and Jake stood still, eyes glazed, unwilling to move. Taking a deep breath, Sarah reached out and touched Emma's shoulder. Her skin was icy, sending another wave of chills through her body. What is wrong with you two? As if the dark itself had eyes, shadows around them began swirling unnaturally. Her heart raced. Something was watching, something they could sense, but she couldn't see. You need to listen to me, she said louder, her gaze shifting around the yard, searching for any sign of danger. Just then, a sudden silhouette leapt from the tree line, crashing toward them. Sarah's heart dropped. With a feral grin, Hemsworth emerged, his figure grotesque, distorted by the moonlight. Ah, Sarah. I think playtime is just beginning. The shock rooted her to the ground. She couldn't move. Panic coursed through her veins and bile rose to her throat. The children's laughter erupted, echoing as if mocking her. The darkness around them thickened, the whispers returning louder than before. Would she save her children, or would they be dragged into that nightmarish abyss? The shadows closed in tighter, and Sarah felt the darkness clawing at her sanity. What would she risk to get her children back before the night consumed them all? With her heart hammering, she realized she had no choice. But what if the real sacrifice was her own? The children's laughter twisted into something horrific, playing with her mind like a broken record. They're just playing, Mommy, Emma's voice echoed, but the delight had vanished, leaving only the cold emptiness behind. Sarah turned her attention back to Hemsworth, heart pounding like a war drum in her chest. Get away from them, she shouted, her voice breaking. But he seemed unaffected, reveling in the chaos he had created. Such spirit, he hissed, eyes gleaming with a malevolent hunger. He stepped closer, silhouette shrouded in shadows, his smile widening impossibly. I wonder how far you'll go to save them. Enough. Sarah's instincts kicked in. She forced her feet to move, charging towards the children, desperate to break the spell that held them captive. As she reached for Emma, a sudden gust of wind knocked her back. The air twisted and howled, biting at her skin, as if the very darkness was resisting her. Panic surged through her veins. She struggled to catch her breath, willing herself to stand. The children remained still, eerily calm amidst the chaos. Mommy, Jake whispered, yet his tone wasn't an offering of comfort. It cut like ice. Sarah felt as if she was staring into the abyss of their souls, and what stared back was terrifying. With every ounce of courage, she lunged for Emma again. But instead of solid warmth, her touch skimmed cold nothingness. Her eyes widened in horror as the children's forms began to shimmer and shift, blurring in and out of focus. Were they even real? Or were they mere phantoms in Hemsworth's twisted game? Embrace the darkness. Hemsworth's laughter sliced through the night. It was a low, guttural sound, filling every crevice of the yard. Suddenly the shadows seemed to stretch toward her, like long fingers reaching out to ensnare her. Leave them alone. She felt a surge of fright within her, clutching onto it as if it were her last lifeline. Images of quiet family dinners and warm bedtime stories flared in her mind, giving her strength. But fear gnawed at her, visceral and suffocating. You'll never get them back. Hemsworth's voice turned dangerously soft, making her shiver as dread settled deep in her gut. They are mine now. Sarah's heart was racing, relentless urgency coursing through her as she tried again to reach her children. As if sensing her intent, they jerked forward, drawn back into the shadows. No. Emma. Jake. Desperation flooded her voice, but they just stared ahead, eyes glazed over, locked in an eternal void. Frantic, Sarah scanned her surroundings, searching for any weapon against the encroaching horrors. Something shifted in the trees. A jagged silhouette, blending with the night, caught her attention. Her pulse quickened. Was it another threat, or was it an ally? The shadows churned, and Hemsworth looked momentarily distracted. You can't fight me, Sarah. He thundered, but she seized the moment to sprint toward wherever the faint shape flickered beyond the trees. Mommy! Emma shouted suddenly, breaking through the vacant glaze, a spark of life returning. Help us! Sarah's heart shattered at the sound, but she pressed on, driven by the longing to reach them. The figure in the trees lurked dangerously close. It shifted again, a dark promise drifting in its wake. Then it appeared clearly, a glimpse of a hand, calloused and trembling. It extended towards her, a lifeline amidst the consuming darkness. Take it. The voice rang through her head, a whisper filled with urgency. Who was it? Was this help, or another trap laid out by Hemsworth? Mommy! Emma's scream cut through the haze. Without thinking, Sarah lunged for the hand, the shadows closing in. She felt the icy grip of fear as she dove, willing herself to believe in the glimmer of hope. But when her fingers brushed against the hand grasping for her, the ground beneath her trembled, and everything went dark. Was she saved or lost forever? The chilling realization crept in with a cold sweat. If she lost this battle, who else would be taken next? What other dark secrets lay hidden within the night's ominous embrace? The darkness consumed Sarah, a thick blanket that suffocated the light. For an eternity, she floated in nothingness, suspended between thoughts and screams, each one echoing like a distant memory. She felt the sharp grip of something fragile yet unyielding, a presence surrounding her. Then came the sensation, crawling into her consciousness. A rush of cold, followed by a tug, a force that pulled her deeper into the void. Was it Hemsworth? Was he pulling her into a trap, away from her children? Mommy! Emma's voice whispered from within the shadows. The familiar sound sent ice through her veins. She fought to breathe, to claw her way back into the light. Emma! Jake! She shouted, but her voice sounded distant, as if muffled by the thick air that weighed her down. As if cued by her cries, the void began to shift. Images flickered like a broken film reel. Emma and Jake appeared, their faces twisted in terror, interspersed with flashes of Hemsworth's torturous grin. They were still in that nightmare, trapped in a web of darkness while she drifted. Sarah felt a surge of will, a primal instinct roaring to life. No. She wouldn't abandon them. Not like this. Grabbing onto that fiery emotion, she fought against the pull that tugged at her being, forcing the darkness back. With renewed strength, she shouted, I am coming for you. The declaration reverberated through the emptiness, shaking its cold grip. Suddenly, the hand from before emerged again, kneading through the shadows, its palm now holding a small, pulsing light. Take it. It's your only way out. The voice was clearer this time, a deep gravel mixed with urgency. Sarah surged forward, lunging for the light, feeling the warmth seep into her as she grasped it. But as she pulled it towards her, the shadows roared, furious at her defiance. They twisted and howled louder than ever, whipping around her, slicing at her skin like icy blades. "Mommy! Please!" Emma's plea burrowed into her heart. In that moment, Sarah grasped the light tightly, pushing it with all her might, focusing on her children. "Together!" she cried, anchoring the light with her fierce love. A blinding flash exploded through the darkness, pushing back the shadows momentarily. Out of the corners, she saw images forming into something tangible, a glimpse of her children, their frightened yet hopeful faces. The shadows shuddered, recoiling from the flame that surged forward, the ground jolted beneath her feet, and then, with a shock, she felt herself tumble back into reality. She hit the grass hard, gasping for air. For a fleeting moment, the world was still. But then reality crashed in, and the jarring laughter of Hemsworth sliced through her brief reprieve. "We have visitors." His voice curled around her like smoke, thick and acrid. Sarah scrambled up, her heart hammering against her ribs. She blinked against the light of the moon. There was no sign of her children, only the shadows that slithered like serpents at the edges of the yard. "Come out, come out!" Hemsworth sang, his sickening laughter echoing. "Where is the mama's little lamb?" Sarah's stomach turned, panic flooding back into her veins. They were still here, somewhere, but where? With determination biting through her fear, she scanned the yard. Every shadow felt like a threat, every whisper of the wind carried dread. The fear loomed heavy, but she had to keep searching. Then her eyes caught something, a glimmer amongst the dark, near the old willow tree. Hesitation gripped her. Was it a trick? Or perhaps it was another shred of hope. "Mommy!" She recognized Emma's voice, faint yet filled with panic. "Emma!" Sarah bolted toward the sound, each hurried step filled with desperation. The shadows writhed around her, angry that she dared move toward the whispers of light, taunting her. "What will you do when you find them?" Hemsworth's words dripped with malice, but she didn't have time to answer. She had to reach her children before it was too late, before darkness devoured them whole. As she raced towards the willow, the shadows closed in tighter. They coiled around her legs. Like chains, desperately pulling her back, threatening to drag her down into their void once again. "Take the light." The voice echoed back at her, flickering with urgency. What light? Was it the one in her hand? Or something more? With an unyielding strength, Sarah dashed forward, feeling the cold tendrils latch at her heels, but she would not stop. Not now. Not ever. "Emma! Jake!" she cried, pushing toward the willow, then the laughter ceased abruptly. A silence fell heavy like a blanket, waiting, watching. What awaited her beyond the darkened tree? Did she dare to follow the echoes into the unknown? The shadows circled closer, their twisted forms undulating like dark waves. Heart racing, Sarah forced herself forward, driven by the desperate cry of her daughter. She reached the base of the willow, its gnarled roots stretching across the ground like skeletal fingers. "Emma! Jake!" Her voice rang out, raw and trembling. Silence pressed in, thick as fog. The only sound was the hushed rustling of leaves, whispering secrets she couldn't comprehend. Was Emma still nearby? What if the shadows had taken her? Each thought clawed at her sanity, igniting her fear into a raging inferno. "Mommy!" There it was again. Emma's voice, a tiny flicker in the all-consuming darkness. Sarah dug her fingers into the cold, damp earth, her nails scraping against the soil as she pulled herself closer. She could visualize them, her children's faces, their laughter, everything she fought for. Without warning, a chill swept over her, sharper than ice, piercing directly into her core. The shadows recoiled, then surged forward, their movements orchestrated into a horrific dance of desperation and hunger. They whispered her deepest fears, taunting her with visions of failing to save her kids. "Why won't you give up?" Hemsworth's voice floated through the stillness, his cruel mirth echoing against the murk. "There is no escape. They're mine now." "Never!" Sarah cried, the defiance roaring back in her chest. She squeezed her eyes shut against the doubt spiraling through her. Deep within her, a small voice urged her to focus. With a quick inhale, she dug into that flicker of warmth that had guided her before. She could still feel the pulsing light from moments ago, its heat a memory waiting to be retrieved. Focusing hard, she reached deep inside herself. I will find you. I'm coming. The words shot out into the darkness, fueled by her love. The world around her shimmered for a moment, the edges of the shadows blurring as if quaking with anxiety. Suddenly, a pulsing glow broke through the weight of the night. It flickered like a desperate heartbeat. Sarah's heart raced as she grabbed the light, clenching her fist around it. The shadows hissed, flinching back from the illumination. It felt like a shield. Mommy. That voice again. No illusion. Burning with urgency and fear. It anchored her, turning her despair into a lifeline. I'm here. Hold on. The light grew, casting a warm halo around her. The shadows snaked farther back, reluctant and angered. They lashed out like cornered beasts, screeching with rage as they warped and flickered, distorting the air. Mommy. Help. Emma's voice turned frantic, a plea that sliced through the chaos. Stay with me, baby. Sarah shouted, her pulse racing as she plunged forward. The willow's bark was rough against her palm, and she could feel the energy within it, an aged wisdom tangled with pain that resonated deep. As she moved, the light intensified, illuminating the contours of the yard, revealing sickly faces within the shadows, lost souls swallowed by fear and despair. Each one watched her, begging for release, but she couldn't linger. The shimmering glow beckoned her deeper into the ground beneath the willow. Suddenly, the ground vibrated, trembling as if alive. Roots squirmed, lifting, curling menacingly as they reached for her, pulling her down. No! She screamed, wrenching her arm from their grasp, determined to claw her way through the earth if that's what it took. Mommy! Came Emma's voice, clearer now. Down here. Emma. Sarah's heart lurched at the sound, a beacon pulling her close. With all her might, she thrust herself downward, plunging into the darkness below, into whatever awaited, escaping the clutches of the shadows still screeching above. As she descended, the air crackled, and the energy pulsated. She felt the world close in around her, a mix of dread and anticipation. Would she find her children? Or would the darkness take her entirely? The shadows above roared, angry at her defiance, but she would not falter. One way or another, she would face the source of the terror, and she was not alone. Not if she had the light in her. Children were waiting, but as she pressed forward, a new dread slithered into her thoughts. What if the darkness was already inside her, waiting to consume everything she held dear? The journey had just begun. What were the shadows hiding? The darkness enveloped Sarah like a wet blanket, thick and suffocating. She could hear the soft gurgling of roots shifting around her, their whispers filling the air. Each movement felt like the breath of something alive, something ancient and hungry. Mommy. It was Emma again, the sound pulling at Sarah's heart like a lifeline in the gloom. But where was she? How deep was this hellish pit? Sarah's pulse thudded in her ears, drowning out everything else, but she fought through the chaos, propelled by the desperate need to find her children. Deeper she went, the glow in her hand flickering like an ember in the wind. The roots brushed against her skin, cold and clammy, as if checking for injuries, tasting her fear. She winced, anticipation gnawing at her gut. What awaited her at the bottom? Without warning, the light flickered violently, dimming and brightening erratically. And then, all at once, it extinguished, plunging her into an all-consuming darkness. Panic clawed at her throat. No, no, no. She gasped, her breath becoming shallow and quick. This was at the moment when defeat threatened to drag her under. Mommy. The urgency in Emma's voice cut through the shadows once more. Help us. We're scared. Hold on. I'm coming. Sarah yelled, her voice echoing in the hollow chamber around her, met by silence that was deafening. Heart pounding, she pressed forward, her instinct telling her to trust in the connection to her children. She felt the ground shift beneath her, gritty and unstable, like quicksand, with an incessant pull that stifled her movements. The whispers amplified, swirling around her like a dark storm, tempting her to succumb. "Let them go, Sarah. You can't save them," they hissed. "Shut up." She screamed into the void, voice raw and desperate. But the shadows only laughed, twisted forms moving just beyond her sight, a cacophony of despair and malice that rang harshly in her ears. And then, from the depths of her desperation, a memory surged. The warmth of Emma's little hands grasped around hers, the laughter of Jake, the moments of unbreakable love. They ignited something inside her, fueling her resolve. No more hesitation. She willed the light to return, pulling it up from the depths of her being, and suddenly it burst forth once more, brighter than before. The shadows recoiled, howling in anger, a torrent of fear cascading through the air. "Mommy!" Their cries now echoed, frantic and filled with fright. "Help! We're cold. I'm here!" Sarah shouted, the glow illuminating sickly faces again, twisted in fear, reaching with pale hands. They begged with their wide eyes, their mouths stretching into agonizing shapes of silent screams. But she couldn't stop. The visage of her children flickered in her mind, propelling her through the grotesque parade of lost souls. As she continued to push through, she suddenly stumbled upon a small cave-like opening, just large enough for her to squeeze through. The glow shone against the dark wall, revealing scraggly symbols etched into the ancient rock, a warning, a plea, or perhaps a map. "Go down. Please." Emma's voice echoed again, stronger now, but the shadows surged behind her, eager to pull her back, to claim her. With one last ounce of energy, Sarah dove into the opening, praying for her children to be on the other side. The darkness closed around her, the air thick and awkward as she landed on something soft moss. Panic struck as she realized she was not alone. The breath of a presence loomed above her, its icy tendrils brushing against her skin. "Stay back!" she hissed, heart racing. She could feel it watching her, an unseen enemy lurking in the shadows, a weight in the air that pressed against her chest. Whatever it was hungry, and now it knew she was here. But then a fleeting sound caught her attention, a giggle. Was it Emma? Or something far more sinister? In that moment, doubt slithered back into her mind. Was she really close to her children, or was this another illusion? A rustle echoed through the darkness, followed by a soft, mocking laugh that chilled her to the bone. "Welcome home, Sarah." The voice was familiar, tainted with malice. It was Hemsworth. What did he want now? Emma, Jake. The panic shot through her again. Where were they? But she had to brace herself, the fight wasn't over. What awaited her in this eerie realm? Was there any hope left to cling to as shadows gathered once more, prepared to unleash their full fury? The air crackled with tension as Sarah's eyes adjusted to the stifling darkness. Hemsworth's presence twisted the atmosphere, suffocating and heavy, wrapping around her like a vice. The mockery in his voice was a dagger to her heart, but the need to find Emma and Jake was an unyielding flame. "Where are they?" she demanded, forcing her voice to remain steady. "What do you want?" His laughter echoed around her, sweet but poisonous. "They're close, Sarah. Closer than you think. But first, let us play a little game." The whisper seemed to snake through the cave, curling around her thoughts. She recalled having seen that sadistic smile once, long ago, at a family gathering. The memory tore at her, fueling the fury of her determination that a low rumble trembled through the ground beneath her. She had to resist the urge to panic, every movement counted now. The shadows swirled, coiling like smoke, weaving through the cave and seeping into her mind. She felt their cold fingers trying to tug at her, urging her to give in. Suddenly, a flicker of light illuminated a small corner. It revealed what looked like a pulsing heart, suspended in the air, surrounded by strings of an ethereal web. "Welcome to my heart, Sarah." Isn't it beautiful? Hemsworth's words were silken poison, his laughter overwhelming her senses. The sight sent a shiver crawling down her spine. As she took a step back, the web surged forward, inching closer, strands reaching out as if eager to ensnare her. She cursed under her breath and spun around, the glow of her light flickering again. Shadows flickered and danced all around her, each voice murmuring in an unsettling chorus. Let her be, Sarah. Come join us. This is your new home. They weren't just illusions anymore. Faces twisted in agony searched for her, their whispers growing desperate. She could feel their despair, their torment pushing against her senses. Mommy. Emma's voice shot through the cacophony, pure and trembling. Help us. It's a trick. She screamed, clutching her head as the shadows pressed tighter. The pressure felt like a vice, reality twisting around her. She had to focus. No matter what Hemsworth tried, she wasn't about to lose hope. Over here. Find us. Emma's voice was now accompanied by Jake's, their cries delving into the hollowness of the darkness, stirring the last fragments of her courage. Sarah advanced, her gritty resolve igniting a spark inside her. She pushed through the murky memories of Hemsworth's laughter, blocking out the cries of the shadows. Give them back. She screamed. In a flash, the heart pulsated, the strings quivering as if in response to her anger. Hemsworth darted forward, anger flipping his features into a grimace. You can't save them, Sarah. They're part of this now. As dread turned into fury, she thrust her light toward him, illuminating his twisted form for just a moment. Within that brief glimmer, a piece of her dwindling strength coalesced into an example of pure determination. She would face whatever darkness hovered around them. Shut up! She cried, and the light erupted fiercely, radiating outwards like a supernova, tearing through the shadows. The chilling grip on her snapped, replaced by clarity. But then another sound ricocheted through the cave, a soft, sinister giggle mixed with a scream. Mommy! Emma! With the shadows still clawing at her heels, she sprinted deeper into the cave, the light battling the darkness that swarmed back. Closer she could feel it. But as she ran, the ground beneath her gave way, a sudden fall plunging her into a cavern drenched in darkness once more. As the chilling laughter echoed again, she gasped, fighting for breath as an icy hand snatched at her. Welcome to our garden, Sarah. So many beautiful souls to choose from. What awaited her in this new layer of terror? Would she find her children, or would she become just another lost voice echoing through the abyss? The moment Sarah hit the ground, a jarring thud rattled her body. Dazed, she blinked against the overwhelming darkness. Broken bits of stone dug into her palms, sharp reminders of her new reality. The laughter still echoed, now a haunting melody weaving through the cavernous walls. She pushed herself up, heart hammering against her ribcage. Emma! Jake! She called, voice quaking but forceful, carving through the void. Silence draped over her like a heavy blanket, broken only by the distant drip of water, like a slow countdown to disaster. A chill skittered down her spine. The cold air felt alive, curling around her ankles and wrapping tighter as if warning her to stay still. She took a breath, forcing herself to calm. Her light flickered back to life, a tremulous beam cutting through the oppressive dark. In the corner of her eye, she saw them. Figures ghosting through the shadows, twisted silhouettes with anguished faces. They were trapped, lingering in some eternal nightmare. She stumbled back, instinct screaming at her to run. Not you. They whispered, their breath swirling like fog. Not yet. Shut up. The words tore from her throat. Tears pooled in her eyes, blurring her vision. No. She couldn't let their despair sag her shoulders. Their cries for help were real, pure with the bond of love, but it came wrapped with lies, too. She could feel the fingers of despair clawing at her resolve. Mommy! Emma's voice rang out again, fragile as glass. Mommy, help us! Each cry energized Sarah, pushing her deeper. I'm coming. She yelled, a fierce protectiveness igniting the warm embers within. The pulsating heart was somewhere nearby, she could feel it. The cave wasn't just a graveyard of lost souls, it was a twisted map of anguish, guiding her closer to her children or leading her into Hemsworth's wicked trap. As she navigated through the shadows, the laughter grew louder, rubbing salt into her wounds. Each step she took was heavier than the last. She couldn't let Hemsworth's voice suffocate her will. Slivers of light occasionally gleamed off the damp walls, teasing her with hope. Suddenly, a series of sharp cries erupted from behind a jagged outcrop. "Mommy!" They were closer. The word sparked adrenaline, and she ran, ducking beneath low-hanging rocks. But then everything shifted. The air thickened, a heavy barrier of darkness looming before her. It felt like a wall, smothering her attempts to breathe. "Sarah," a whisper, slithering through the murky air. "Join us. Don't you want to be with them forever?" She shook her head violently, grasping her light like a lifeline. "No." Panic surged, clawing at her chest. She had to fight through. She felt a new presence bearing down. Shadows lunged at her, groping. She dodged just in time. With every ounce of her strength, she thrust the light against the creeping darkness. It flickered angrily but held steady, illuminating a path just beyond the looming shadows. "Emma! Jake!" She gasped, hoping they could hear her as she sprinted forward, but then, as the light cut deeper, it unveiled a gaping maw of jagged teeth, a chasm just beyond the children's cries. The edges glistened with a sinister wetness, an invitation to the unimaginable. Panic surged anew, the laughter collapsed into a high-pitched squeal. The ground vibrated, quaking beneath her feet. The cavern shook, thrusting Sarah into the air just as the laughter became a cacophony. "Choose wisely, Sarah," Hemsworth shouted, voice swirling around her like the wind. "You can save one or the other." A terrifying choice loomed, heavier than the darkness. The realization paralyzed her. Who would she save? Time fractured around her as the cries faded into the howling wind. Choose. Heart racing, she faced the choice of a lifetime, knowing that every second counted. Which would it be? An icy doubt crept into her mind as she teetered on the edge of destruction. And just like that, the laughter wove itself into silence, leaving her in a void of anguish and uncertainty. What chilling fate awaited Sarah as she struggled to make a choice that could haunt her forever? The darkness swirled like a living entity, seeping into every crevice of Sarah's mind. Panic settled in the pit of her stomach, a heavy stone pressing down as Hemsworth's words replayed like a twisted melody. Over and over, the choice echoed. Each child's name burned in her heart. Emma, Jake. The connections anchored her, but they felt like chains. Which one? "Mommy!" A chorus of cries split the stillness, piercing through the haze of despair. The voices grew louder, layered with urgent desperation that sliced through her thoughts. She clenched her jaw and darted forward, propelled by instinct. Shadows writhed around her, mocking her distress as they reached for her yearning heart. "Join us forever," they cooed, a siren's song tainted with malice. Unwelcome images flickered in her mind as she ran, memories of laughter, warmth, and family. They intermingled with visions of joy twisted into anguish, but she had to focus. She had to push forward. "Stop it!" she screamed, forcing herself to concentrate on the light in her trembling hand. It danced around her, flickering in and out of existence, like a beacon both fragile and fierce. The darkness roared in response, feeling its power melt beneath her resolve. "Sarah," came the eerie whisper again, as the shadows tightened. This time, a chill ran deeper. "Choose now." Before she could react, a sudden shift in the air made her halt. A figure emerged from the darkness ahead, someone she never expected. The outline wavered, a blend of shadow and human form. The face twisted into a grotesque mirror of a familiar smile. It was Emma, or a horrific likeness of her. Sarah's heart dropped. "Mommy! Please!" The figure wailed, arms stretched wide. Behind it, Jake's cries mingled, soft yet distinct. Just beyond the twisted apparition lay a dim exit shrouded in fog. It beckoned her with a glimmer of hope. Sarah took a step back, fear clutching at her throat. "You're not real," she shouted, fighting against the tidal wave of emotion washing over her. But what if it was real? The thought pierced through her bravado. The shadows recoiled, morphing around the figure, forming new shapes, emerging faces of despair. Visages of the lost throbbed in the darkness, urging her to join them. "You can't escape. You're one of us now. Shut up." The words erupted from her, unleashable fury against the mournful chorus. She had to drown them out. Fear gripped her stomach like ice, but she couldn't falter now, not when hope glimmered just beyond reach. Fighting against the urge to spiral into the abyss, she focused on the light once more. "Emma! Jake!" she cried, half expecting her voice to be swallowed whole. Nothing answered. The silence fell heavy, needles pricking her skin. The air grew colder, each breath palpable. Only a single whisper remained, so vivid it felt like a touch. "Choose now." An electric surge blew through her veins. She turned toward the flickering dimness where the cries seemed to come from, the light narrowing down to a fragile beam. She gritted her teeth, stomping toward the entrance, heart drumming against her ribs. But as she lunged, darkness encircled her once more, shifting and closing in as it hissed. "One must pay. I'll save them both," she screamed defiantly. Just as she lunged for the silhouettes, the ground shook again, throwing her wildly off balance. The faces twisted in mockery as the cries shifted into laughter, echoing through the cavern as the shadows tightened. In that split second of uncertainty, shadows grasped at her ankles, dragging her back toward Hemsworth's pit of despair. As she struggled, she felt a chilling presence loom behind her. The weight of her decision pressed heavier. What if she couldn't save either? What if? "Choose." The darkness whispered again, the voice now hauntingly familiar, like a half-remembered nightmare. Sarah's heart raced. Dread pulsed through her. She had to act or lose them forever. Yet, she hesitated just long enough to feel the overwhelming weight swallow her whole. What if this was just the beginning of something worse? As the shadows pulled harder, Sarah's mind erupted with chaos and terror layered with the whispers of her children. The darkness enclosed her, pressing closer, corners of her vision retreating into the void. Would she dread her decision too late? The very air quivered with palpable fear, and the chasm behind her loomed ever larger. What final choice awaited her just over the edge? The shadows roared, their whispers echoing in the dark. "Choose, Sarah." The weight of Hemsworth's twisted game hung heavily in the air, sealing her fate with suffocating certainty. Shaking her head violently, a fire ignited inside her. No more hesitation. No more despair. "Emma!" A scream ripped through her throat. "Jake!" She focused with all her might, channeling every moment of warmth and love into the pulsating light in her hand. It flickered but did not fade. "You're not taking my children." The shadows wavered, sensing the surging confidence that coursed through her veins. Sarah launched forward, dragging the light with her. The darkness recoiled, hissing and twisting, angered by her resistance. Images of her children's faces ignited in her mind, their laughter, the warmth of their hugs. They were worth fighting for. "Mommy! Help us!" Emma and Jake's voices echoed, pulling her closer. The cavern vibrated, the earth quaking as panic surged through her. They needed her. "You'll pay for this." Hemsworth's voice, thin and malicious, whispered into the shadows like a grim prophecy. "One must be sacrificed." "No." Sarah's voice rang clear. "I choose to save both." With every ounce of strength, she forced the light forward, pushing against the darkness that closed in around her like a vice. She couldn't let him control her fate. Not anymore. As she ran deeper into the maw of shadows, the light exploded outward, illuminating the grotesque visions of lost souls trapped within. Their forms twisted and turned, begging with their haunting cries. Join us. Give in to despair. She thrust the light forward, willing it to shine brighter. Shadows shrank back, their distorted screams cutting through the darkness, but she wouldn't stop. She rushed forward, knowing the exit lay just beyond the veil of torment. Help! I am coming! She shouted, unyielding, straining against the grasp of the darkness. Sarah felt the light pulse with intensity. It blasted through the fog, illuminating Emma and Jake in a corner, no longer bound by despair but lapsing into trapped fear. The shadows whispered lies, but Sarah willed them away. Hold on, my loves. I'm right here. It was as if her voice had the power to push through the thick canvas of blackness that separated them. At the heart of her strength, the light surged, radiant and alive, wrapping around her like an unbreakable shield. In that moment, she saw Hemsworth, his smirk twisted with rage as the shadows clawed at him, furious with betrayal. You can't escape your fate, Sarah. You're one of us now. Not if I can help it. Sarah roared back, breaking through the final barrier of shadows that defended the cage holding her children captive. The light pierced through, blindingly fierce, forcing the dark to surrender. Emma and Jake rushed toward her, stumbling but alive, their faces breaking into wide-eyed hope. Mommy! They cried, desperation tinged with joy. Sarah fell to her knees, wrapping her arms around them, pulling them into a tight embrace. The fear melted into warmth, but it ignited a fierce protectiveness inside her. I got you. We need to move now. Suddenly, the ground trembled. Hemsworth's furious voice bellowed, You can't escape. This isn't over. The shadows spiraled and writhed as if the cavern itself was alive. Together. Sarah encouraged, clutching her children's hands. They still have the light. They had each other. As they ran toward the shimmering exit that floated like a distant dream, the darkness roared in anger. It lashed out, clawing at them, but with every step, their united strength pushed the shadows back. The light swirled, brightening, guiding them through the chaos. With one final surge, they leapt forward, breaking through the veil of shadows. A burst of joy flooded Sarah's heart as daylight enveloped them, pushing away the remnants of fear. They had done it. Crawling onto the soft grass of the backyard, Sarah clutched Emma and Jake, their warmth grounding her. She gasped, breathing in the fresh air, alive with the scent of freedom and blooming flowers. The nightmare had ended, but her heart sank as the laughter of Hemsworth reverberated through the air, a malign echo determined to leave its mark. This isn't over. He hissed in the distance, his threat lingering like a dark shadow. We're free. Emma squeaked, her laughter spilling forth like sunlight breaking through the clouds. Mommy, are we safe? Jake looked at her with wide, innocent eyes. Yes, Sarah said, determination setting in. As long as we're together, we're safe. The shadows receded, the hold of the dark fading as dawn broke fully over Maplewood. They would rebuild. They would overcome. Don't forget to keep shining your light, she whispered, feeling the promise of a new beginning take root within her. They would never forget. With the sunlight gleaming overhead, the whispers of shadow faded, but the bond between them solidified stronger than fear, reminding Sarah that even in darkness, one can always find the way back to the light, and in that moment of peace, a promise lingered in the air, they would always stand against the darkness together. Now here's your moment. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and make sure others find this journey. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. Your thoughts matter, and we want to hear them all. And finally, don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to know this conclusion. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Let us keep the stories alive.